Okay, here we are, Chapter 7, Whistleblower. Whistleblower is going to be something fun to talk about because a whistleblower is sometimes referred to as a person that's a snitch. They're they're tattletale, that they're disloyal somehow to the organization. But I want you to think somewhat differently about a whistleblower. And a whistleblower is an employee. They may discover something that's unethical. There's some type of misconduct that's going on within the organization, and the whistleblower is a person that brings it to the attention of others. Now, there are internal whistleblowers and there are external whistleblowers. Internal whistleblowers are those employees that discover, as I mentioned, a corporate misconduct. They may tell their supervisor or some senior leader within the organization. And then there should be a process in place where, or some type of procedure in place where there's a follow-up to address that misconduct within the organization. There's also an external whistleblower. The external whistleblower is when an employee may discover there's corporate misconduct and they choose to bring it to the attention of someone outside of the organization. They may decide that they're going to turn it in to some type of enforcement agency. In federal government, you may see IG, internal investigations. There's just so many other avenues. I'm more accustomed to a lot of the federal processes because I work for the federal government. So I just want you to know that there are various types of whistleblowers and what they're all about. They are not tattletales. They're trying to do the right thing. There should be processes in place that protect them. And in fact, if you don't have something in place to protect them, if you try to go after them, you are breaking the law and you're in serious trouble. Ethics of whistleblowers, because in contrast to whistleblowers being brave and praiseworthy, they are also considered to be motivated by money, or they are considered to be motivated because of their personal egos. Some see them as having breached the trust and loyalty that they owe to the employer. So that's why you'll see sometimes this, it used to be, probably today too, somewhat of a backlash on them. But that's why there's laws in place so that there's not, because they're really truly bringing an issue to the attention of the organization. It needs to be done, especially if you're talking about a loss or some type of something that's going to expose the organization to being sued or criticized publicly. So if you're trying to determine whether or not whistleblowing is ethical, just think about this. When the company, through a product or a decision, cause considerable harm to people, or they break existing laws, I think it's ethical. When the employee identifies a serious threat of some type of harm, I think that's ethical too. Or when the employee's immediate supervisor, they don't act. The employee should exhaust every single internal process or chain of command to the board of directors if they believe that nobody's responding. Employees, though, that are whistleblowing should have some type of documented evidence that they view the situation as being, they've somehow accurately captured what's happening within the so-called unethical situation. The firm's practice, product, or policy threatens or the public or the product user. That's when the whistleblower, as I've said, they are being ethical. The employee that's the whistleblower, they should have valid reasons to believe that revealing whatever is happening wrong to the public will result in changes that will remedy the situation. Hopefully, they're not being vindictive and mad at the organization, so they're just purposely going after the organization and the people there. When that happens, either way, if there's a threat or some type of process that threatens people or, public harm, something like that, they have a responsibility to report it. I will say this, there are unethical whistleblowers when they are motivated by the opportunity of financial gain or media attention. That's not really ethical. Or if they're carrying out, as I've said, a vendetta against the company, that's not ethical. So there's something to call qui tem lawsuit. And this was brought on behalf of the federal government by a whistleblower under the False Claims Act of 1863. So responding to whistleblowers means that you're going to address their concerns and you are not going to fire them because they brought it to your attention. You see, prior to 2002, legal protection for whistleblowers existed only through legislation. So the Whistleblower Protection Act, it addresses the issue of retaliation against federal employees, impose specific processing deadlines of complaints, guaranteed anonymity of the person that's blowing the whistle, require prompt payment of any portion of the settlement entitled to the whistleblower instead of leading them on. I'm not going to go a lot into the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002 because I've talked about that when we were back, I believe, in Chapter 6. But the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, as it applies to whistleblowers, it's an integrated approach of whistleblowing because it prohibits retaliation against whistleblowers and it encourages the act of whistleblowing itself. So it's an integrated approach of whistleblowing. That Dodd-Frank Wall Street and Reform and Protection Act that I mentioned over in Chapter 6B, it introduced a new reward program for whistleblowers who report securities law violations. If they support them to the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, or if they report to the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. There should be a well-defined process in place to document how complaints should be handled. There should be a whistleblower hotline, a telephone line where employees can leave messages to alert the company of any type of suspected misconduct within the company without them having to put themselves on show without revealing who they are. Anonymous. There needs to be prompt and there needs to be a thorough investigation of all complaints, whether they prove to be futile or not. There should be, and there needs to be a detailed report of all complaints. Whistleblowers that are ethical, they're going to do everything they can to try to have the issue remedied. But there are last resorts for whistleblowers if they don't believe they're getting any type of response from their supervisor, the chain of command, or from an external reporting process that they thought were in place to help them. So you can see where whistleblowers go to the media. They can seek out media attention that can create terminal damage for the organization that would just never be repaired. Sometimes organization leaders push people to that point because they want to bury information that's been brought to their attention. They want to try to discredit the evidence that the person may have, and they tie their employees to restrictive confidentiality agreements sometimes, and that in itself should kind of give you a hint, okay, so why do we need this in this environment when it's not like top secret stuff that we're doing? So all of those things will harm, or, let me say it like this. The Whistleblowers Act was put in place for a reason. You should have seen over the last several years where there's people that have opened up the government to scrutiny, opened up organizations to scrutiny when they've called in hotlines and they've done things to make sure that other folks know that there's misdealings within organizations. Even when you see WikiLeaks and some of these things, they're exposing people, or they are somewhat trying to expose people for what they claim to be unethical behavior. So when we think about the Whistleblowers Act, it is not or the whistleblower is not a person that's a tattletale or a person that's gossiping or one that wants to get the company in trouble. Now, if they want to get the company in trouble or try to, build up something against the company out of a vendetta, that's unethical. But if they're seriously trying to protect people, the consumer, making sure that there's no harm to the environment or to people, they have a responsibility to let folks know. So that's Chapter 7, the whistleblower, blowing the whistle, and it's real simple. That's what it's about. Thanks.